Welcome back from the breaks, folks. We're getting into that match number 3, one shot taking on Aqualix. This is going to be a bloodbath. If I can predict anything, Tanner, one
Mm.
shot, this team is undefeated.
I mean, not just undefeated, they don't even look touchable. There's no team that's been able to take them into overtime. They've won every game cleanly in regulation. They've been putting up some massive numbers. You're seeing really good entry work coming out, and then you have a really good the biggest thing that they're doing for me is like they're playing their own game, and I'll talk more about that in critical points. But I think a lot of that has to do with just like the solid back end that this team has right now with Prod, making sure that they're getting all their information, and then you got Swaylen. Like if Swalen's in a clutch situation, he's just absolutely clutching up every gunfight. Um, I can't speak highly enough about this roster. The roster that's impressed me the most throughout stage 2.
Yeah, and then, but we look across the aisle, Connor. We look over at Aqualix, and this team, although they got off to a slow start, there's something about these last 2 games that gets you thinking, like, man, if someone is going to push one shot to the brink or maybe even beat them, could it be Aqualix?
It might just be because across the desk, every single stage that we've ever seen a Gasher version of Aqualix, they're a team that we want to like. They're a team we want to love because they're fun to watch, but there's always been a lot of issues. And overall, incorporating Beastly into this team might just be the turning point because this roster, now that they're clicking, are looking a lot better because, they have an actual pedigreed hard support player that knows how to drone. And it's also a benefit that he's the shot caller right next to Gasher, and this team has looked good. The rest of the team, your Psychosis, your Gasher, or Afer and Tra, they're the ones that need to shoot. Beastly, his stats don't matter. Who cares about his kill death ratio? I don't care. I care about the score that's at the top of the screen. If his team's winning rounds, that's what truly matters with a player like him. And there's a lot more rounds won with Beastly in the roster.
Okay, now one shot, going back to them as well as they've been doing, Tanner, do you just focus on yourself at that point? Is that your critical point? Look, we've been doing the right things. Let's just keep doing it. Do you worry about Aqualix at all, or do you just kind of put it out of mind, out of sight, out of mind?
No, and I'm just going to generally talk about like One Shot's doing a great job of playing their meta, right? So like everyone's talking about this new Finka meta with the nades and really quick gameplay and just playing chaotic, playing these trades, dynamic entry points. That's not One Shot's MO at all. Right, they have a formula that has been working for them for a long time. We saw it back in the Orglis in stage 2. We saw it a little bit in stage 1, where they're playing methodically, taking their time, playing the whole clock out, and that's what they need to keep doing here. Right, just keep killing your game. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Do what's working best for you. And I think they're the best team that kind of exemplifies that right now. Biggest thing I'm looking for them to do, if they're going to have success versus Aqualix, is make sure that you're contesting the map control, especially on the defensive half, in order to control the pace of Aqualix. Aqualix is a team that takes their time. They have a lot of slower executes. If you can delay them back to your site, you're going to afford yourself a lot of time. Maybe go to a bigger map, maybe something like a villa or a theme park or a bank where you can really like play the clock to your advantage. And that's basically it. Like they just need to play their game, keep it simple, play the clock, and they look like they're going to have a good time.
Well, also fairly similar question for you, Connor. When you're Aqualix and you've had this upswing and you've been doing things right, do you worry yourself at all with one shot and what you're going up against, or do you just say let's focus on ourselves and keep doing what we have been doing or figured out so far and keep doing that?
Well, one of the biggest things would be kind of an introspective point for the side of Aqualix, because if they did not use the off time to refix some of their defenses, then they might have been doing their best trolling impression, because it was abysmal. It's a 41% defensive win rate, which sure, you can say, oh, all the maps are going a little bit more towards the attacker side. They're still one of the lowest, if not the lowest, percentage winning on the defensive side. And that's not good for a team that's trying to fight for top 6. And when you're going to be trying to fight for top 6, you need to beat these top teams. And you're going to have to beat this top team with your entry duo. You're going to have your Psychosis and your Afer going up against NBK and Razor. And that's going to be a very difficult matchup for kind of both parties. It's really even. It's almost going to be a coin flip. If you kind of want to see how each round is going to go in this game, you're going to have to look and see how those trades go. Just look at the early round. Look at that matchup in particular, and it should give you a good indicator for the entirety of this game.
Now, Tanner, we know that both of these teams have very strong map pools. Is there any sort of way that you could think one shot might be looking at and think, okay, since we both have good map pools, are there any of those in particular that we think we've got the edge on?
I mean, the biggest one that you think you would have the edge on if you're One Shot would be Bank, because of how they played versus or Aqualix in stage 1, where they had a 7-4 victory. But other than that, it's the maps that are a little bit more strategic in nature. The ones that, a good IGL, good information and droning kind of go a long way. Trying to remove away those equalizer maps like the Clubhouse, the Oregons, the Borders a little bit. That way, when you're playing a team, they have to show a level of forethought and strategic. Like it kind of goes into how a team practices and how they develop their strategies. A map like Oregon, like you could pre-fire every angle. You don't even really need drones. We saw last game, for example, we saw LG just pre-firing angles and without any information, because it's very common to be in certain positions. A map like Theme Park, I think, actually heavily favors the side of one shot, simply because of the fact that you need to be strategic in how you're taking it. Your drone work matters a lot. How you gather your information matters a lot, and these are all huge strengths for the side of one shot. Whereas Aqualix hasn't really demonstrated that ability to to get that information at the same level as one shot.
Mhm. Now let's throw the predictions up on the screen. Connor, if let's just say Aqualix, they were to even take them to overtime, obviously you want to win every match. Losses just, they don't feel good. But if Aqualix is able to take them to overtime, is that almost like a win in and of itself? Because I mean, you're getting a point, that's great, but it says something. This is a team that's undefeated in regulation, and being the first person to take points off them would be saying something.
Oh yeah, it definitely would be. It'd be a gigantic statement win, and it would kind of require a little bit of change on the side of Aqualix from what we've seen. Sure, we can say that yes, they're improving, but they need to really step up their game. And there's
Mhm.
already a little bit of an indication in that way that we saw in the map ban phase. Out of 16 games that we have and the kind of the last little bit on Aqualix for map ban data, there's only been one game out of 16 now that they didn't immediately auto ban Oregon. And maybe just bringing their very long historic auto ban that they don't want to play a sort of equalizer map, they don't want to play normal siege.
Mhm.
If that happens, maybe Aqualix is kind of moving forward a little bit more. They're already kind of showing a
Mhm.
little bit of glimpse behind the scene. We might not see it this game, but we might see it more in the future.
Mhm. Now, Tanner, correct me if I'm wrong. These two teams, they feel like they're pretty different style wise. But in your mind, what are maybe some of the similarities, or what are some of those differences that separate them? And what is about one shot that gives them the edge? At least, I mean, by our prediction sense, we seem in the scoreboard, we all seem to think that they have the edge. What is it that separates them from a team like Aqualix? Hmm.
Can you hear me?
Well, yeah,
Okay,
you're good for us. Well, we can hear you.
sorry about that. But the biggest thing that separates the two teams is is just the ability to frag. One shot's
Mhm.
got this ability to just come on the board and make sure that they're picking up these entry frags. Kilo's been going absolutely massive for them this stage, and like I said, 3 out of the top 5 players in the league right now are all on one shot. That's the biggest decider here. They both play very strategic. They both play smart. But one shot just has these fraggers that are on another level, and they've been demonstrating that so far this stage.
Hmm. Now, Connor, let's say the unthinkable, as it were, to happen would happen. What does Aqualix have to get in order to match that firepower, to out strategize them? Do they maybe have to focus on their opponents a little, consider their strategies, and try to outwork them?
Um, on a map like Theme Park, it's a very execute heavy map,
Mhm.
and that kind of should lean a little bit more towards the one side, well, the one shot facet. But for Aqualix, if they can really get the map control that they want, which in theory they should be able to, a lot of what we've seen with one shot on Theme Park has been kind of peel back roams and sit and bunker inside of the site.
Mhm.
Hopefully, for the sake of everything, when you have somebody like Beasley and like Gasher on the side of Aqualix, they should be able to really string together and execute. And if you still have your entries alive, you still have your Psychosis and your Afer still there, even Traw can get in the mix. And
Mhm.
one thing that I kind of just forgot about until now is Gasher is playing his best mechanical siege that we've ever seen out of
Yeah.
him, which
Mhm.
is really good. He might be a little bit of a difference maker overall in kind of breaking the stalemate of your whole entry versus entry on the side of Aqualix. And it's going to go down to the flex, which is what he's playing. It's a him versus Swalen matchup, which should be exciting.
Okay, and Tanner, this is one that I'm going to ask you a bit of an interesting one here. You're on the upswing as Aqualix. You've won the 2 in the row and you've looked good. Does this break come at a good time or a bad time? Was this a good time to say, hey, look, we did some things right, let's keep tweaking? or does this come right when you've got that momentum building game by game, and you kind of maybe wish that last weekend we did have some matches to keep it going?
It really just depends on how you practice in those 2 weeks. Like if you're sitting there and resting on your laurels, oh, we've got this and we feel really confident, and then you
Mhm.
have 2 weeks of bad practice, it hurts you a ton. So
Mhm.
it's all about your mindset going into those 2 weeks. If they're going into it going, okay, listen, there's still a long way to go. There's a lot of siege left in this stage. If they go into it and like, stay humble and keep grinding in practice, then there's no reason why this break would even come close to hurting them. It would probably actually help them considering how one shot's so developed right now. And
Yeah.
Aqualix has built a new roster they're trying to develop themselves. It would probably help them if they have this right mindset. I don't know what it is. Obviously, we don't see what happens in practice.
Mhm.
um, so it's really going to be proven today, which team came up to play. This is a best of one.
Yeah.
So whichever team comes to play today is the one that's going to have that success.
Well, let's segue that over to the other side, Connor, really quickly before we get into it. When you're one shot and everything has been working, you've been doing everything right. Is there any for you, like what's the 2 weeks off gonna do for you? Like you're polished, you're established, you just want to play these games out, wouldn't you? Like what would a team that is doing everything right do for 2 weeks?
Well, the biggest thing is you have to think about the very cliche saying of practice doesn't make perfect.
Mm.
Practice, it makes permanent. That's what they're trying to
Mhm.
go for, is a lot more consistency. And this is not a roster that is just kind of focused on, hey, we want to win some CL games. They want to go and win CL playoffs after winning stage after stage
Yeah.
and going undefeated and proving that they belong in the NAL. All five of these players have that capability to be up in the T1 level, and hopefully this is just sort of their little bit of audition. They're sitting on stage, they're flexing just that bit and trying to look good.
Well, I know that Jonah and John are dying to talk as well about this matchup. We are going to go into the third one. It is one shot, Aqualix. We're going to theme park.
Hard one here to really elaborate on. That our desk really stretched that one out and gave us the full picture. But one shot, Aqualix, it's a 4-0 team versus a 2-2 team. A team that has looked unstoppable versus a team that's just trying to work out those last few kinks. I think prediction-wise, we all know where we fall, but it is important to consider what is that perfect storm for Aqualix, John, to get them this win.
Although they play really well in terms of, being able to work those 4v5s back into their favor, we saw that a lot on Nocturnes. I feel like not just relying on that, not relying on those individual clutches like we saw Psychosis do, funny enough, on the exact same matchup in Chalet against Nocturnes. They just need to keep that team play consistent and also pick up the pace as well. You can really waste a lot of your own time when you're trying to clear out properly on Theme Park, especially against One Shot, who are a fantastic team on that roam game. They play really well on Bank, which is another great map to go on that roam game. So this really does look to be a solid place altogether for One Shot to play on, but we're not going to get to see them on that roam game just yet. They do start on the attack. Maybe Aqualix can shine really darn true in terms of that roam position, and maybe they can get hyper aggressive and potentially throw One Shot off guard.
Yeah, I think to loop back to the question that I ended up throwing your way, like what do Aqualix need to get perfect to win this game? I think it will be about coming out on defense and putting in a near flawless performance. They need 4 rounds. 5 would be a bonus, but they would need 4. Because I love that you bring up Bank, because if you think about One Shot on Bank, I think that translates really well here to Theme Park. Those are similar maps in just the vastness and the size of the maps, but also in the way that you play certain positions. Of course, the extensions aren't quite the same, but what really comes to mind is One Shot on Bank, the way they hold blue stairs. The combination of the Warden and the Azami with those Kiba barriers to bolster that position for as long as possible. It's so hard for attacking teams to work their way through that. You now go to a map that's arguably harder to clear out, that arguably takes more time to get control over. If I'm an attacking team against One Shot, I am terrified almost no matter what. So it's going to be huge for Aqualix to come out the gate swinging. They've got to do it. And we are still waiting to sort out one quick technical difficulty with getting this last player in the lobby. But once we do that, we'll be able to go in and get this one sorted out for good. But I think the map favors One Shot. I think the way One Shot had been playing favors One Shot. So it's back to that question the desk brought up. What happened over these last 2 weeks? What did Aqualix do to propel them to success for the second half of the stage?
I mean, overall, it's just showing constant improvement. I mean, we've talked about how well Gash has been performing on stage 2. He's always been an outshining player so far against great teams like Luminosity, for example, that finally have reached that top 4 position. I actually checked the stats to see how far they leapfrogged over after winning that game. It was a pretty big margin, almost doubling their standings altogether. And in general, making a lot of games close. Like, again, I want to tie back to the Nocturnes match because it's still very fresh in a lot of people's minds. There were tons of rounds where they kept it close, and in fact probably shouldn't have won the round altogether, but they still did. They have a really good core foundation, but again, main problem with One Shot, they also have a really good core foundation too. So it's going to be 2 teams pretty much just headbutting the whole time, and honestly, the basic fundamentals might just be a little more potent on the side of One Shot. Again, especially since they're on a very comfortable map towards them. I think if we were on maybe like a slightly smaller map in this ban phase, we might have Aqualix make it a really close game, if not potentially upsetting perhaps. But altogether, this really does lean on paper to One Shot winning this, but I still think Aqualix can take at least a couple of clean rounds against their opponents.
And just to give everyone a status update, we are still waiting a little bit longer to get into this one, just sorting out a couple of technical issues. Believe me, we're as antsy to get into this game as you are, so sit tight. Hopefully we'll get that sorted out in a minute. But again, thinking about this map and thinking about the history on this map, right? We talked about One Shot and what we assume they will do and what we've seen them do is in previous stages. We actually haven't seen One Shot play on Theme Park so far this stage, but we have seen Aqualix play on it. They had a wishy-washy performance against Took the Kids, who ended up winning that game. So between these 2 teams, we have 1 Theme Park play this stage and 1 loss for Aqualix this stage, which will certainly likely factored into One Shot picking this map and will likely factor into some of the adjustments we see Aqualix make.
And as well, I think the one major time we've seen Theme Park play by One Shot was stage 1, and they lost 7-4 to Nocturnes. In that rough margin, I'm pretty sure it was 7-4. So it didn't look good at first, but it's almost like a brand new team, essentially. There have been a lot of major roster changes that have made One Shot from like that, 4th place team to now like pretty much a top place team, only being 2nd place because Rent Free have played a couple more games and that's mostly it, but still having a couple of player issues. We will hop into a quick little break and be back as soon as those have actually finished up. Or actually, no, just kidding. Perfect timing. I stalled just enough. We're going to game. I lied. I got you good there. I even fooled myself.
You got me. You fooled me. I mean, you had me for a full second and then I saw we were going to the game. I'm like, come on, this is good. We're starting. Finally.
There it is.
Let's go. But we're going into the game, John, and it's good because we can actually stop speculating and we can talk about what exactly we've got going on in front of us. So that'll, of course, start with the operator bans. Could see that Azami ban from Aqualix. I think that's something I would like to see as far as that defensive ban, because One Shot, I mean, they are dastardly with that innovation, that creativity, which is usually a word we use to describe Aqualix. They're usually that creative team to bring out those fun and unique strats. But really, One Shot, they have been innovating. They have been defining the new meta here in Challenger League. So Aqualix will hopefully have the right mind to counter that. As far as the rest of these bans go, nothing too surprising. The Ying, smart ban for One Shot to counter any Aqualix aggression, something that we know they can bring out a lot. The Mira makes a lot of sense, as does the Flores. But Aqualix, instead of opting for that Azami ban, their defensive ban will be just as logical, probably even smarter, because the Valkyrie wasn't banned by One Shot. Aqualix felt that they had to take those cameras and that extra utility off the board.
I mean, this ban phase just screams we want to waste time on the defense. You have so many great options. Jaeger, Wamai, those are the 2 obvious. Aruni placements as well. I mean, the list goes on. Azami as well, because she's been in play a lot more in comp, and especially on Theme Park. She can be very helpful with extending that time frame and keeping those really strong areas on lockdown for the defense. You touched on that briefly while we were waiting for this matchup to actually start. So for Aqualix and, One Shot, when they move over on the defense, I could imagine they want to extend on the map quite religiously and try to hold down those spots for as long as possible, because again, if you are very slow on that execute and you're already short on time, you might be in some pretty big trouble.
Well, Aqualix, as we mentioned, starting on the defense, they will be opting to begin down in Throne. Not too much of a surprise. This site has gone in and out of the meta over the last few months, but it's found its place back firmly as that primary bomb site, especially here in CL. And, generally, the way to structure this defense is going to be a pretty serious roam, or an extension at least. We're seeing that utility already being established up above. You've got these EDDs, these entry denial devices coming in from Afer. Bit of an explosive greeting for any attacker who enters the building without obtaining proper information first.
And some of them we did end up seeing over near, bathroom, for example, and also the storage spot too. That's a semi-important part of the map when you end up moving down a floor lower. We talk about this sometimes on Villa, where if you are attacking dining, for example, you play a lot above for that verticality. If you waste a lot of time up there, you can struggle with clearing out that extension and library. The exact same thing follows up when you're attacking the top floor theme park, and then you want to go down into armory near split, for example. If you don't have that info that someone's still inside a lab and you can't clear it out properly, that could be a huge mistake. And if you're still outside trying to get in those windows and you're greeted by an EDD, you might get blown up sky high, and that feeds your team tons of information as well. And Afer, a beautiful pixel shot as Pride tries to go upside down on the rappel to pretty much make himself impossible to shoot, but it seems like Afer just doesn't care.
Yeah, the thing with those upside down rappels is it's nice when you can, catch the defense off guard and sneak in from above rather than below, but the other thing is the only thing to shoot is your head. That's the first target presenting itself, so all Afer needed was the one bullet, and that was more than enough. Gasher will follow that one up with a kill of his own onto Razor. And Afer, well, he's not done yet either, hoping to take this fight by Cathay, but it's Swalen who ends up winning that. A nicely placed pre-fire to take the Kapkan down and to start to bring this disadvantage back as they drop one of those defensive bodies. Still need one more to equalize us into that 3v3.
Amazing fallback, though, by Aqualix to keep that man advantage strong, and because there is only a minute left, you're probably not going to see all that much vertical play, maybe a little bit in certain spots just to make sure you could get some of those back walls opened up, but with no wall denial, we might not see a lot of top floor pressure altogether. It might just be an immediate fall down to that first floor because, again, the timer is already so short. One shot, they got to start upping the ante, and it seems like they will sort of go for some vertical, but that is still going to waste a lot of time, especially if they can't work any kills off this.
Yeah, NVK is trying to likely get a kill or two from these angles, but like you mentioned, John, it's not like the defense doesn't know what's going on. They'll just reposition, try to avoid those angles, and just keep themselves alive as long as they can. These Kiba barriers are certainly helping, as Psychosis has this added bit of protection from this breach that was just opened up. Tra also has that protection from two separate positions. You've got Akiba on that split door and one right behind him, so he'll use that angle to take care of Swalen. Psychosis takes care of one as well, and it's just going to be NVK. He was busy with all that vertical work up until now, where he actually has to step in, spring into action, only to get felled by Gasher with about 2 seconds left on the clock. Strong opening round for Aqualix, starting out exactly like we said they needed to.
Yeah, strong being the perfect word to say that. They found two very important gunfights, and it forced One Shot to slow down heavily. Eventually, they were able to get vertical down, but they only had 45 seconds to really get as much value as they could from that. But like you had mentioned, Aqualix, I mean, vertical, it's highly expected when you're defending armory, so you just set up more or less close towards the throne part of the map and near more of that natural coverage for the anti-vert spots, and you're probably fine. That's exactly what happened. It was still that 4v3, the maintenance wall gets opened up, and it's pretty much a funnel at that point because you're not going to want to push your way in through split doorway, forcing yourself in that crossfire. You're probably going to want to go in through just dragon doorway and that maintenance wall you had just opened up. So all Aqualix had to do was just place a couple of key barriers and just wait for One Shot to make that final move. Really good adjustments throughout the entire round by Aqualix to guarantee they get a very clean first round win.
Using the time as best they could there on the defense is always key on this map, and Aqualix did it really well in that first round. And something that is always a common theme on theme park. It's the time. It's about how long it takes the attacking teams to clear out this ginormous map. And on top of that, you've got to worry about roamers. You've got to worry about establishing the vertical play and all of the random Kapkan traps spread all over the map. So many things that just suck that time off the clock. So One Shot, they'll be looking to speed this one up. Already, you've got Razor working his way in down below into lab. Obviously, no defenders in his path. The nearest one located in Throne on the camera right now, waiting for an opportunity to pop up and get involved. But This is exactly the change of pace that One Shot needed. Just start off the round, just firing on all cylinders, moving in as quickly as you can so that in the late round, things are not as hard to come by.
And not being all too vulnerable either. They're just waiting pretty comfortably, still gathering enough map control, like you had mentioned, though, to have an impact on the round and maybe gather enough vital information against those roamers, like what BZ's currently doing. He's just sitting between both Throne and Armory and maybe waiting for someone to kind of push into his own territory, but so far, that's not going to happen. We're going to have One Shot use up a lot of their utility trying to break that back shield, and although a keep barrier was placed at the right time, it didn't really force the nade to bounce back. It's going to get perfectly cooked, breaking both the shield and that first cube barrier, but a second one was in the pocket of Afer, so he'll deploy another, and for the most part, completely block off that Cafe double door besides just a small kill hole to make sure that map control is not given for free.
Well, map control hasn't been given up for free. I mean, you can see that based on the fact that One Shot are still sitting still here. A well-placed nade. At least it looked well-placed, exploding by Beastly, but he doesn't take even a single bit of HP worth of damage, nor does Psychosis, as he efficiently dodges that second frag grenade sent his way. Beastly, though, dropping down, falls into the waiting arms of Razor, who takes care of him. So One Shot are off to a good start here, but they're going to need more than just that. They still have some more defenders to track down. They still have these on-site anchors to deal with, and well, on cue, they will start to take care of them one by one. Tra will also hit the deck.
40 seconds left to go. Finally, that extension has been dealt with for the most part, but you still need to get some of those back walls opened up, as I would assume the rotates have been reinforced. But having both the Thermite and Thatcher still alive and well, they can do their job and begin to open up a new entryway for the offense with just 20 seconds left to go.
Afer waiting until this execute actually comes through before he pops out. Same for Psychosis, but he'll actually swing first. Taking care of Kilo, downing NVK in a perfect position to honestly secure the round for his team. There goes another. Swalin's been finished off. It is all up to Prod. NVK, who's finally been revived, but Gasher sneaking in from behind. He'll finish off the round all by himself. Two beautiful kills to finish things off. And One Shot, despite a two-man advantage early in that round, early in that execute phase at least, they could not turn that into success. Well played from the defense again.
And altogether in that round, Aqualix just refused to give away map control for free. They fell away at a very according time because they, lost Beastly playing in that first floor. Your flank potential is now gone. You lost another player who was still extended near that cafe area, but you don't just fully give away that bunk position. You still had one of the two walls opened up, so it isn't just the Thermite walking up to that double wall to get it opened up and then they begin for the execute. No, you can begin to put the hurt down as One Shot are just entering that part of the map. And then because you had One Shot begin to scramble because they had 20 seconds left and they were no longer in that 5-on-3, that allowed people like Afer, of course, to step up when needed to most. And actually, no, I think that was Gasher. My mistake, actually. Gasher stepping up big when needed most on that alibi pick and just swinging two different people. And I mean, with 5 seconds left and you have to worry about a crossfire essentially, there really is nothing you can do, especially when you're on very low HP. So once again, great style of play by Aqualix, really never giving One Shot any time to breathe.
Exactly what they've got to keep doing. Got 2 of the 4 rounds they're looking for at a minimum, but 5 would certainly be a bonus. This map generally goes very defensive-sided. That's why we're asking them for quite a bit here. But in the same vein, I mean, One Shot, they also likely are hoping to find their footing sooner rather than later. We know how strong they can be on defense, but they cannot be putting all of their eggs in that basket. They would love to get a couple of rounds under their belt here, especially on Aqualix's tertiary bomb site selection. Interestingly enough, that'll be Bunk and Daycare, which often finds itself as a secondary or even primary bomb site, but Aqualix preferring initiation in office and winning there. So One Shot, another tough site to attack, and an uphill battle that they'll be facing soon enough. Looks like they'll be approaching from the cafe side, as we see that Osa shield in position, and we see a well-placed shield as well from the defensive side staring in their face.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of a Western stand, I guess. between both teams, shield versus shield. There goes an impact, but I believe it's a little too short, perhaps. No, I think it actually still breaks that down shield, but still not a big problem. Can't really just overtly swing, I suppose, and eventually that other deployable shield will get destroyed as well, forcing back the defense by just a tad. Nope, the talent shield was actually far enough away. I was right the first time around, but still gaining a little bit more control. Not the worst spot altogether for one shot, but they are still trying to put the pieces together to have everything work accordingly, still having people on these window repels and still waiting for maybe someone inside of Aqualix to get a little too aggressive.
This is tough, right? Because they don't have a foothold on this map just yet. Sure, they've cleared out one position, one deployable shield, but they've taken nearly 2 minutes to do that. They don't have any boots on the ground until finally someone's willing to maybe hop in upper arcade with the control that now they've secured, but they still have so much to do, and the time is going to be a problem once again. You've got NVK holding this break room window, but again, those Kiva barriers are in his way. He's got options, he's got utility, and finally, he's got a teammate now to rely on as Swaylin just jumps on in and takes care of one. Afer, though, will trade that promptly, and so now it's NVK's turn to stare down the barrel of the Wamai on the other side, but he doesn't win it either. Afer whips around, and good timing for that because he will collect that kill no problem. Gasher on the follow-up takes down Razor. Beastly now in trouble. He's been spotted out on the flank, but still the advantage held from Aqualix. 30 seconds remain, and Afer knows where these final two attackers are positioned, so he is going to patiently wait for them to step up. One player creeping up the hall, the other creeping down the stairs, both moving in opposite directions. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, and, well, it looks like that'll cost one shot at least one, no both of their lives. No real plan in the end, no commitment to any specific fight or another, and they'll die one by one.
Well, the biggest problem overall for both teams was just information, so to speak. At the very beginning, how One Shot got the entry kill was Psychosis having no clue someone was actually in the middle of office or break room, I should say, sorry. That was Swaylin getting the entry kill for his team. But after that, I mean, Aqualix, they were still expecting One Shot to eventually have to enter the building, probably near that break rappel. So Afer was quick on the refrag, and then NVK is basically stuck in a kill box. He has to either look at a, Kiva barrier, or he has to try to, finagle his way through that rotate hole, which he'll probably just die to some sort of long angle because those smoke grenades were used quite well to make sure nobody could hop in from that outside area near cafe, doorway, and arcade window as well. And then we saw the major hit of that, non-existent information by One Shot. You had people second guessing where defenders were set up at. Prod was walking down arcade stairs. I thought for a minute it would be to help in case anyone was on that sub balcony area, but no, I think he just had no clue where anyone was playing at, so he basically forced a 1v3 basically for Aqualix, and then an actual 1v3 when he was the only one alive still playing on the staircase.
Well, 3 rounds in, and One Shot have yet to show us much at all on the attack. Aqualix doing their job, doing exactly what we needed them to do for them to have a strong performance here. But it's getting to that time, John, where we need to start asking some of the same questions to One Shot. Because nobody wants to go in to their defensive half on any map with a 3, 4, 5 round differential. That's not ideal. You're going to want to alleviate that as soon as you can. And I think now's a good time to change that up, right? 3 rounds in, you've gotten a feel for what the defensive setups are going to be, and now you've gotten a feel for where those defenders are going to be. I mean, 2 quick early kills from One Shot, but Tra with 2 quick kills of his own. He lines up a double to immediately equalize those 2 opening kills for One Shot.
Now it's up to One Shot to figure out that information game once again. Psychosis, after popping up a Kiva barrier, potentially having that fake sense of someone still playing above, will just fall back. Reinforces the rotate over between both barrels and the site itself. So we have everyone falling back once again. Your vertical player is gone, but at the very least, One Shot, they still have that secondary shotgun, the hand of Prob with that Jackal, but that is going to take a lot of time to once again work the vertical play that probably just isn't worth it at this point. You can maybe help utilize some of that soft obstruction to help the Thermite get some of those walls open, but again, with no wall denial, they probably don't need that either unless they want to go for grenades up above. But again, One Shot, having no clue that the top floor is free for taking, they still have to spend a lot of time gathering info, but at least it pays off slightly as Prod does detect Beastly. Now the drop down is almost ready to be confirmed.
Yeah, just scoping that one out with that Gemini. figuring out if it is indeed safe to push into split and take those fights. But you got to remember, there are Kiba barriers everywhere, and they need to be dealt with. They've got to somehow get destroyed if One Shot want to drop into split and push from that angle. Otherwise, they're not going to have much of an option of actually pushing out to the site. The biggest problem is they only have 2 more explosives to actually deal with said Kiba barriers, right? 2 in the hands of Swaylin, and that is it. And they've got just about 40 seconds to figure out how they want to deploy those nades to get the job done.
Well, finally, that thermite charge can go off on the yellow wall, opening up a way near the back of Armory side. But again, a lot of time was spent up gathering just pretty much dull information that really served no purpose. But at least now One Shot can begin to try to set up Force Execute. But if they don't know where Beastly's playing at, that could be a devastating power spot.
We saw how close that nade was to Beastly, but somehow he didn't even take 1 HP worth of damage. That now allows Aqualix to do exactly what they do best, and that is sit back and just take names. Here goes 2 kills quickly to Aqualix. It's all up to Prod now, who has to somehow push into split. But again, these Kiba barriers are in his way, and he has no time to barrel his way through them. Another round where Aqualix hangs on in the end, and despite a good start, One Shot just could not maintain that pressure to take the win.
Well, it seems like a timeout's being called by One Shot. I really do not blame them, because at the very beginning, it seemed like they were making the changes necessary to get some rounds on the board for their attack. But Aqualix, they just refuse to give away anything for free once again. They know how defender-favored this site can be put in the right hands, and so far their hands seem pretty fitting overall for Theme Park. And One Shot, they're just not able to crack the code against Aqualix. Once again, One Shot just clearing out spots that have nobody there. Once Aqualix get the kills necessary to win rounds, or at least be in a good spot overall for that execute phase, they just play really passive. They don't want to, have One Shot get a lot of freebies in terms of kills. I mean, we saw that in the first minute. Once Trough found both refrags, essentially, he just went away. He left the top floor, still gave a little bit of util to waste more time by One Shot, but besides that, he put his person in a safe spot for the most part. And Aqualix still just holding down those necessary angles, and One Shot still pretty much just funneling into sight round after round. It's just devastating their count as of right now.
Well, hopefully that timeout is enough to get them back on the right track, because they need something now. We did preface this map as the one-shot territory, which usually implies success on more than happen.
Well, heading back to offices, we have seen this site once in play for Aqualix. They won it over in round number 2, and that was off the back of a lot of pressure. We did see One Shot, I believe, get that 5-on-3 position. Razor did find that entry onto Beastly, but again, because One Shot, they really only had one way of entering the site, and Aqualix were not willing to give that up. It did give a lot of new options for Aqualix to redeem themselves in terms of that player count. Seems like Aqualix want to go for the exact same style of defense, extending over near Cafe, because they know how important that part of the map can be, and also making sure that in case One Shot want to try to change something, they have the precautions ready, still having a couple of nice positions held over near Cash, for example, maybe even near Control. But it seems like for One Shot, they want to still stick to what they think could work out for them eventually, because so far, they haven't really found all that much success when trying to go through Cafe.
Sorry about disappearing there on you there for a second, John. Don't know what
it happened.
there,
I've
but
done it too.
we're back, and hopefully everyone can hear me, because we can focus on this game. Because for One Shot, it's getting to crunch time, John. It is getting time to put the pedal to the metal and figure something out. A minute into this round, and we haven't seen any action just yet. So unlike the previous round, this one feels a lot more like those first 3. And Aqualix are just sticking with what they know. I mean, it's working. No need to change it up, but a little bit of overstaying your welcome may be a problem for Aver. He just tried to linger there a bit too long. Didn't have that protective utility like he may have thought. So a well-placed nade will open up the round for the attack.
Yeah, Afer just overstaying his welcome. Yeah, like I had mentioned. So Not really too surprising there. The nade landing perfectly where the shield would be, and a player was just simply right next to it. Psychosis losing a bit of health by some grenades. The second one comes flying out, but he sees the indicator, and Razor forgets that BC was playing here last time, allowing him to get a free trade, and now One Shot have a lot more room to breathe. But Psychosis, he still falls back. He wants to change position to be a little more proactive in this round and not just die by that window repel pressure or any other nades meeting his position once again.
Aqualix, I mean, they just keep staying alive. The opening pick gone 1 shots away, now 2 rounds in a row, but Aqualix, they just don't seem to care. They're still hanging in, and just every one of these kills will slow One Shot down. Every one of these kills will make an impact in the end, especially when it comes to the execute phase of this round, which is, well, now approaching around the corner.
Yeah, 30 seconds remain left on the ticker here, and I mean, you get the back wall opened up, yeah, that's great and all, but still, we're seeing these last-second readjustments here. NVK getting up on the roof, maybe to go through control hatch, but it seems like Aqualix, they're well prepared for that, maybe even hearing him up on the roof, so really just only a matter of time before the carnage ensues.
Nade from above could be good. The danger is, though, Kilo's getting this bomb down. Is there coverage there from One Shot? Do Aqualix even know this? No, they're all on the other side of this map. They're holding this extension, and it doesn't seem to matter at all because One Shot are able to take the site control, get the bomb down, and then lock the site down just as easily. Finally, One Shot get on the board.
And although Aqualix were well aware NVK had moved on the roof to play on the hatch, it still forced 2 players stuck in control. Now that you had the offense get inside of the objective, you can't really try to swing wide as you're maybe expecting someone to already be in a very favorable angle to shut you down once you hop in through that doorway. So what do? You wait for NVK to maybe get over-aggressive, kill him, and then you can reposition, hopefully play for that retake. NVK played rather reserved. He got his 1 kill, but still just lingered on that hatch, and now Aqualix, they are just in full panic mode at that point. The diffuser goes down, they're at a deficit, and One Shot, they are just holding these basically stalwart positions that they cannot be flushed out of at that point, and Aqualix, they just end up choking in on all the attacker prowess on that round. A really good round we finally get to see by One Shot, but they still probably need to clean in 1 more round just to make sure they have a little more of a favorable second half.
Finish out this half in style. Aqualix are hoping that Bunk and Daycare will be the site where they can finish things off strong. I mean, they're all playing well. I mean, no one player or 2 is like going crazy and stretching out and getting all those kills like Silent was in that last series. But I mean, you have a lot of contributors, right? Gasher, Psychosis, Afer, and Tra are all contributing equally, and Beastly, who's sticking on that supportive role of the smoke. 1 in 5 right now, but nothing to be too worried about. This utility-focused game for Aqualix has really led them through so far, and they're likely hoping that it can take them through just 1 more round. Psychosis is back on the Warden, so that's also an attempt to not only add defensive utility, but counter the explosive potential and any flashbangs that One Shot may be trying to throw in and actually push in quickly if they can.
Once again, the attacking squad, just business as usual, wanting to go and get cafe control. I mean, I don't blame them. They can get a lot done once, the shield is gone, for example. Prod even bring out the Twitch. I don't know if you can see it past the shield, but, at least Gasher does. He's on the other side of the double door, and he's able to break that with relative ease. So it'll just be the old-fashioned way of still trying to clear out the shield. Another Twitch drone was spotted out from behind. It might have broke 1 ADS, but besides that, it still seems like the defense is holding strong. Gasher once again trying to get aggressive, but eventually he has to fall back, and at least he does not die to that grenade we saw him fall to earlier, round number 5.
Who could keep a barrier now coming in from Gasher. It's still 1:30 off the clock, so it's not going to be too much in terms of time waste, given that it is on a window. It just takes 3 melee hits to remove it, but it allows Gasher, at the very least, to rotate away to safety. And that was really the point of that engagement. He was taking the fight on that top arcade window, decided it was time to leave, so used that primary gadget so that he could tuck tail and run. That was his last keep a barrier, though. All the others are pre-placed on the site itself, so he'll fall back to the safety of that coverage, while the rest of One Shot's attack tries to regroup and work their way in again from top arcade, cafe, and now break room.
It seems like a sense of deja vu at this point. One shot, once again, waiting for Aqualix to get aggressive, but they're not really overplaying their hand all that much. We have Razor trying to flank from the back stairs, but it fails miserably. Afer gets with a prod as well, and it's still just a rock and hard space, essentially, that One Shot to put themselves in.
Whalen got a kill here last time, but he's got to worry about that top pressure from Arcade. I mean, here it is. There's the swing, and Psychosis will get one before eventually falling. Afer, no problem. He can clean that up easily from that angle, and Kilo, he's able to get a nice one tap, but that's the half, and that is a 5-1 half for Aqualix. The exact scoreline that they were looking for. The best case scenario, essentially, you got to assume that One Shot are going to take one round here or there, and that is exactly what Aqualix were able to limit them to. 4-round margin is what One Shot are staring in the face as they switch to the defensive side.
I mean, pretty much they've got to win 6 in a row to make sure that they don't have to play overtime. Simple arithmetic there, but I mean, it could be potentially possible, just very unlikely. I mean, we talked about the defender favoritism that you see a lot on Theme Park, but to a degree where you win 6 rounds in a row, it doesn't seem possible, especially since Aqualix, I believe, still have their timeout. So if things get really dire, they have time to catch their breath, not only in terms of the round count they have right now, but just in general with that timeout. And across the board, they've all been doing their job pretty well. Beastly may not have the best in terms of kills, but he's never been the guy to go over the top in terms of frags. He's been finding his worth with that utility, with those calls being made, and also sometimes finding those X-Factor frags. The one kill he got was pretty important. Razor was playing near bottom arcade, and he killed him while still playing in split, and that slowed down One Shot quite substantially, and really on that first half, that was the name of the game. One Shot just being too slow in a majority of rounds. But at least now, as they move on the defense, they don't have to worry about that as much.
I don't know about you, John, but I still have One Shot taking this in overtime. I think it'll be that. I think Aqualix maybe can get one, but I think One Shot, they have what it takes. I'm predicting 8-7. I don't know what you have to say about that, but I feel like they have it in them. The question is, how consistent can they stay? It doesn't help to go out on a map. It's just a best of one, and you already are out to a 4-round deficit. That's not ideal. And it's not great for the confidence, and it's not great for the comms and the coordination. But if you can get past that, if this was a complete reset, if they're able to find that reset button, the mental reset button, everything, and go into this second half like it's the first, I think we could see a very neck-and-neck battle, and this one go all the way to the end. But enough speculation. Let's see how they actually do it. I talked a lot about the Azami. I talked a lot about the protective and that utility that One Shot are likely going to have, but all of that simply doesn't matter. A perfectly placed nade will send Razor sky high. A perfect start for this attack.
Yeah, One Shot having no chance to fall back in that position, granting Aqualix the entry. They haven't found it all too many times, but seems like not going to be able to hold that man advantage for all too long. Kilo and Swalo pick pretty good times to swing, winning their 1-for-1s directly, putting Aqualix now on the back burner. They lose out on that vertical presence, but they still need to clear up the top floor as is. Psychosis trying to lead the charge, and it's pretty much just him and BC left at this point as One Shot are still putting down the herd in round 7.
I mean, they're all over this map, getting one by one kill here and there, and Aqualix, not a single trade has been found. It was that opening kill with the nade, but that has been it. 3 completely unanswered kills by One Shot, and I don't know if it's going to change. You've got Beastly, who's 1-6, who needs to find his footing if Aqualix want a chance in winning this round. You do have Psychosis, who's playing pretty well, but right now he's busy droning out his teammate, trying to figure out where these last 4 pesky defenders are located. 2 of them on the site, 2 of them slightly adjacent to the site, in bathroom and in that yellow hall, but no one willing to expose themselves to these angles.
I mean, at this point, with the Mute Jammer still being available, you have to funnel in through Dragon or Split, and with 2 defenders off-site currently watching that hallway, connecting into Split, it seems like Dragon is really the only option that Aqualix has left, and they don't have much time to try to get in the site and hope they win their ones.
Maybe Psychosis can be sneaky enough? Any surprise, ruined by his Gone 6 shot onto the Banshee, though. So Beastly will also try to relocate, maybe to provide support from his teammate, but I'm not sure if they realize that the only 2 defenders not on the site are watching Split. There it is. Psychosis is gone. Beastly 1 HP. He's out of time, and there goes his HP for good. There goes a good start for the one-shot defense. One of possibly many if they can continue that kind of success.
You know, I was really hoping, just, you know, guilty pleasure, that we would have had one shot just start typing Z's in chat, but I guess they don't want to jinx themselves. That's totally fair. You know, don't want any bad juju when you just got a nice, clean round on your first defensive side. Can't fault you for that. Bunk and Daycare now an option for them. In general, just keeping strong to the positions they were holding was just what set them in the right way. And also, how separate we had Aqualix play on their attacks altogether. Yeah, they were trying to get the right parts of the map in their back pocket, but it seemed like they were just far too apart to properly play for those trades like you had brought up for a brief moment during the round itself, Jonah. And because of that one shot, they were able to keep that strongman advantage. They fell back a floor when they felt it was just enough, and then they could still play off-site and have all the utility that was saved up over time to make sure no one could comfortably work their way in through both Dragon Doorway and Split, despite that hatch being opened up near Split, and despite, you know, a little bit of information being there for Aqualix.
Comparatively to the Aqualix defense, one shot apparently prefer Bunk and Daycare as their secondary site rather than initiation on office. This feels like it makes a little bit more sense to me given the way the map is structured, but Aqualix seem to do fine either way. One shot, they will be electing to apparently fortify this, facing the cafe side of things. Don't see that deployable shield in the hallway that we saw from Aqualix and that we see a lot facing that cafe door. So not opting to play it as aggressively, but they still do have some utility in that position if they want to send a Kiva barrier over that way, or if they do want to have somebody swinging in that hallway and taking that fight, even though it would be unprotected.
Tra rocking the Amaru here. Couple different things you can probably do with her. You know, you've got Burn with the flashes. That's always helpful no matter what op you're playing, as long as they have them. And then you can, of course, you know, quickly hop up, you know, those break windows, for example. Maybe even one of the hatches, too, if you really want to get fancy with it and don't want to go for, you know, just the old-fashioned idea of trying to get yourself in the building as fast as possible. So far, Tra, he's just waiting, sitting outside, feeding information for his teammates, though. He was currently on one of his 2 drones, and he'll get on the second one immediately. He'll probably be that X factor towards, you know, the latter end of the round. As of right now, he'll just sit outside and just try to do as much he can in terms of enabling his teammates to pick up the slack in terms of that map control, and maybe even working some kills too with that information.
Well, Razor's just working his way all over this map, deploying some Kiva barriers as he goes, opening up a couple more angles, trying to deny any additional entry points. And hey, I mean, if you find an attacker just sitting down below, in that case on the top of a vending machine, why not find that kill too? It'll be Prod who collects that one, not Razor, who is roaming elsewhere, but a good first pick nonetheless for one shot. They no longer have to worry about any early pressure on the site from anybody in the building, but there is some possibility that Tra just sends it in on the Amaru, keeping that in mind.
I mean, he's got the Gar hook out, and there he goes, perfectly called by you. Jonah, the Razor Boom goes off, and it seems like he's not going to get destroyed. The rest of his teammates, though, are dead to rights, forcing the lone Amaru in a 1v3.
Wow, that one was quick. Tra just sent it, but unfortunately, it didn't work so well for the rest of his team, finding himself the last player standing, only to get caught in, I believe, 3 players' line of sight in the end. That's 2 in a row for one shot, continuing to make some good adjustments, and so far the defensive side is just as potent as we thought it would be.
Really powerful stuff so far by one shot. I like the idea that was attempted there by Afer, trying to hop on the vending machine to get a better line of sight on the guy in the balcony, because that's probably one of the toughest spots to clear out as the Amaru player, unless someone just has no idea that you've Gara hooked up. But it's such a loud cue that it's probably not going to happen most of the time. So that was a really cool idea done by Aqualix, but it didn't really work out because there was no utility to, you know, force him back a little bit to get in that position safely. Prod found a very fast and swift 1v1 kill, and that kind of set the tone for how one shot were going to clean out the rest of the map. They were still very strong at keeping away Aqualix outside of Cafe, and then when Tra eventually got ready to hop in the building, his whole team's dead, and he's in a 1v3. His position's known. He can't really do all that much against one shot.
Yeah, hard to get the timing of a maneuver like that so perfect, right? I mean, you go 1 second too early and you're dead and your entire team isn't ready to go. Go a little bit too late like we saw and you're in the site all alone because your team is already dead. Really hard to get a perfect storm to have that attack go right and have the defense caught off guard. It looked like One Shot were prepared for whatever shenanigans Aqualix were throwing their way, so they really had no trouble taking that round win regardless. But now their tertiary site, and the first time we're going to see this site today, it's lab instead of initiation and office. Now, normally against a team like Aqualix, I'd avoid picking a site like this because their potential to just send it in, go for a classic lab rush or a stock room rush and try to catch the defense off guard here. But with the Ying ban, I suppose that One Shot are probably feeling a little bit more comfortable, playing aggressively enough too that they can deny any early entry points. They can deny simply rotations outside the building, as Psychosis just innocently was trying to get some map control, and Razor said, "Nuh-uh-uh, not in my house, goodbye."
Yeah, slapped his hand immediately out of the cookie jar. Looks like Psychosis is now just stuck eating his vegetables. I mean, with vegetables being drones, of course, and just maybe spectating some teammates here and there, perhaps, if he wants to. But probably just stuck on cam duty now for the next minute 40 is probably going to be his job now in round number 9. One Shot seems like they have so far read into how Aqualix want to take this quite well. Again, it can be very difficult to go for that very quick attack if you don't have a spearhead, so you've got to do things pretty default of just clearing out the whole map top to bottom, especially when that site is on the bottom floor. You have a lot more to deal with in such a short time frame, and now that you've lost a player, it's going to be even more challenging to not only remove that top floor completely, but also deal with this extension that we see in Armory and Throne.
Asher's able to equalize. It's a good kill onto Kilo as he works his way up above, trying to apply as much vertical pressure as he can and try to get as much map control as he can. And while that pick is not that consequential onto Kilo, it does take a C4 off the board, it will force One Shot to be a little bit more careful with the next fights that they take. They no longer have the freedom of that additional man advantage. They no longer have that extra control that Kilo was trying to maintain. So NBK is going to have to stay on his toes here, as this site, even though he is theoretically in the safety of the objective, it's very exposed. There's a lot of openings. You've got that double door. You're now losing your teammates all around. Where even was that? Tra will just run on through Throne and get 2 easy kills. There goes NBK, exposed by the very angles that were supposed to protect them, and it is all falling on the shoulders of Swaylin here. One good angle is found there onto Shra, the menace who found those first 2. Good shot with the SMG-11, and he can try to burn the last 5 seconds off the clock here with the well-placed smoke, and he does hit Beastly. But the site being as open as it is right now, Beastly can go anywhere he wants, and Swaylin, he is being pinched out and exposed. There goes Afer finishing it off, making sure to protect the player, getting that diffuser on the ground, doing it just in the nick of time as well, because that bomb was still being planted. Aqualix take the 1 round they were looking for. At the very least, we're going to overtime. But for Aqualix, they have a chance to put this one away in regulation.
And I'm glad Aqualix didn't try to jump the gun because they lost a player in the first minute. Aqualix have always been comfortable so far, it seems, in Stage 2 to play all right still in a 4v5. I mentioned that briefly in the pre-show before we actually got into the game because there was a decently long delay, and we've seen that example countless times. We've seen One Shot when they were attacking this map to win those entries quite confidently, yet Aqualix still squeeze their way around victory here and there, and it really has given them the upper hand, now taking match point as well, because we still had Gasher taking his time on the vertical, still forcing back One Shot in both Armory and Throne, having Traw and other players work both Dragon, Doorway, and Split, and because the team synergy wasn't there from anybody outside of Armory and Throne for One Shot, it was able to have Aqualix just completely close in on that one portion of the map and get the kills necessary to hit the site properly, despite the fact they did only have 30 seconds to kill and there was still a smoke on the board.
Well, even though this is still a defensive-sided map, and even though Aqualix also were able to secure the 5-1 half when they were on the defense, it is a lot scarier now. Don't you agree, John? Because now you're staring
Absolutely.
against match point. Even if the assumption is that you're going to take the next 3 rounds in a row, every move you make has to be perfect. It has to be calculated, and you've got to do it with the ever-present worry that all it takes is one small fluke for Aqualix to put this one away in regulation. All it takes is another sneaky play from Tra, and all of a sudden, That's it. That's a 0-point game for One Shot, and that would be their first loss of the season. This is the first time they've gone at least to overtime. They haven't had anything other than a full 3-point win so far. So at least we know that's happening for sure. But if Aqualix have their way, this could be their first regulation loss as well.
Yeah, regulation has been their bread and butter, that being One Shot, of course. I like how they have at least that split doorway barricade, so we don't have Tra just walk into sight, and then the dragon doorway, of course, being bansheed off. So Tra's going to probably be just holding cutoff angles. If someone drops down near arcade, he could probably kill them. Unless he wants to work his way upstairs, I think that's a more proactive move, especially when you have someone already on cafe. If someone tries to bait near cafe doorway, that could be a really big play. It's not going to happen, but Tra still wins the fight altogether against Kilo, but at least NVK will silence Aether and still cause a little bit of chaos up above, but not for all that much longer.
Yeah, surprise, Beastly's behind you, NVK. Not sure if you knew that. Clearly, he didn't, and he'll die because of it. But Prod is still around, still playing, and still fragging out. It's a 3v3 now, thanks to some well-timed swing from the mute down below. And that'll slow things down here for Aqualix, because yes, they're gaining a lot of control on this top floor, but the objective is still downstairs. They still have to deal with Razor before they can even turn their attention there. Psychosis, that is a clutch kill if I've ever seen one. A nice flick there onto Razor, denying what looked like it was going to be a one-shot kill for sure.
Really boosting up the morale here for Aqualix, retaking that advantage, and they still have a couple of vertical holes to maybe play with, but it probably won't be enough, and because of that, Aqualix will now begin to stretch their way forward towards the site, but before they jump the gun, like we haven't seen them do all that much, they'll begin to try to drone their way out with those Geminis to fully confirm where exactly these last two defenders are playing at, because they do not want to give One Shot this vital second chance.
Exothermic now going on the wall. Good swing, though, from Prod, and that is a perfect kill onto the Thermite before the Exothermic could detonate. All of a sudden, Aqualix now have only one option, and that is send it straight on in. A good kill is found by Psychosis. Goes 1 for 1, but he's got to recover this diffuser and stick this plant. Prod, he's got to work his way in this split door. He's doing it just a little too late. He doesn't know where to look in Psychosis. He's got an opportunity to close this out, and he does not disappoint. Aqualix finished it out in regulation, a 7-3 victory thanks to Psychosis and some heads-up play in the end.
And just the little things as well, Jonah. That barricade placed to try to stop Aqualix from getting in the site, it backfired just slightly. Having that audio cue to make sure you know someone's working way in through split, that made such a better position outright for Psychosis. He has a good idea that he's either going to swing you from that split doorway to his left or his right. He just has to make that 50-50 gamble, and he wins it outright. Playing against range with the SMG-11 really did reign supreme with that ARX, and a gigantic round altogether for Psychosis, securing 3 impactful kills, despite the fact we had that Thermite down for the count. It looked like we had One Shot just about ready to salvage that, but just a couple of small mistakes, like you mentioned, Jonah, really had a big impact for them, and now they lose 7-3.
We said it would take the perfect storm of events to give Aqualix this win, and I honestly gotta say, I don't think it took even that. I think it wasn't quite the perfect storm. It was just near perfect.
Yeah.
And honestly, they played it to perfection, right? They didn't even need those extra, perfect element here, perfect element there. It seemed like they could do no wrong. Started off strong on their half, on their defensive half, and just never allowed that momentum to fully leave them, moving on to the attacking side and hanging in there, staying in the mix. And that's what matters. Looks like all of our predictions were wrong yet again. So we'll throw it back to our analyst desk to tell us why exactly that happened.
Aqualix at this point has to be making a name for themselves as the team to look out for. And Connor, they've been having some good games leading up to this, but this has been their game yet, because I gotta say, One Shot didn't look bad. They looked like they couldn't do it. Like, it just looked like Aqualix was preventing them from having a good game.
Yeah, this is definitely not a game that you go, oh yes, One Shot through, oh my gosh, Aqualix got lucky. No, this is an Aqualix win through and through, and this was the most impressed I have ever been at any iteration of Aqualix on any map that we've ever seen, because it feels like with Aqualix there's always positives that you can take away from their game. That their entry game looked good, or their drone denial was nice, or hey, they had a couple of good executes, but they'll have a couple mistakes here and there that will end up costing them games. This was the most complete game of Siege that we have ever seen Aqualix play, where they checked every box. They finally pulled every piece together, and they looked dang good.
Tanner, one of the things you talked about before this match is how important on a map like Theme Park intel is, and I know that you picked up a lot of different notes on intel throughout this match.
I mean, Aqualix played the Intel game almost to perfection. The biggest thing on Theme Park is there's a lot of rooms you got to clear. It's a very large map. Information is key. And Aqualix did a great job just fundamentally taking out all the drones from one shot. It felt like maybe there was one round on one shot's attacking app that they had the information to be able to attack on site, but they were forcing them to throw in their drones. They had to fight for their info. They forced them to stall on time, and then as a result, they're just having these really bad executes, and that's all because of the proactiveness that one Aqualix did for this game, which was absolutely solid.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's only one thing to do right now, and that is interview the one and only Gasher. Talk about this massive victory for Aqualix. Gasher, okay, you guys have been looking good lately, but this had to be another level. I mean, we were talking about it on the desk as we were going into the match. We're saying you go up against a team like One Shot who's been playing well. Even something like an overtime loss coming away with a point could have felt like a win, but you guys didn't want to seem to settle for anything. This was a huge win for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously One Shot are a good team, and we knew that coming in, but we obviously knew we were a good team as well, and we thought we showed it last week, and we just kind of said, hey, let's just keep building off last week. We know we can be really good, and yeah, here we are.
Now, we talked about, especially a map like Theme Park and playing against One Shot, this is going to be an intel heavy match, and you guys seem to, on your defensive half, attack every drone that could possibly be found. Was that an MO for the game, or did that just kind of play itself out that way?
I mean, I think we just came to this game with a lot of confidence because we just kind of knew, like, they don't really have the most, like, aggressive players or really aggressive entries, so we just kind of say, hey, like, we just get in their face. They're probably not going to do much about it, and they didn't, and the game plan worked.
Now, with those two previous wins that you had in the last play days and now 2 weeks off, did you guys really maximize that time off to further perfect your game?
I mean, yeah, of course. We kind of, we looked at the first week or the second week. We took away likes, got rid of what we didn't, and we really just kind of looked at the meta as well and just decided, like, all right, let's just go all in. And I think what we're playing now, it fits how everyone wants to play, and I think overall it's going to be really good going forward.
Yeah, I gotta say, you guys made a statement with this matchup. Congratulations again, Gasher, and good luck.
Thank you.
Have a good one. I can't get the word out of my head. Statement match, statement play. These guys came out and they made a mark on this stage. And I think, yeah, this is the team now to keep an eye on. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, oh, they're going to take it all home. But, I don't think another team has taken a single game to make as big of a mark on their own season on the stage as any other team yet. There's a lot of Siege to be played. What?
Well,
I think Rent Free coming in and just winning their first three were pretty big statement games.
But as a collection of games, they made some pretty big statements. I'm talking about one game where you come in, face this one team, and all of a sudden people are going, "Hold on, there's something to this." Okay, that's 3 matches out. Wow, we are flying through them today, guys. But they've been amazing competitive matches. Now, the next game coming up, this one's going to be interesting. We're going to come back in a few minutes. It's going to be Gaming Gladiators taking on West Garfield Park. These guys have a lot to fight about. We'll talk about that in a minute.